Welcome back to another video, and today I am going to be doing a tour of the Smallholding. That all sounds very grand. I'm basically going to show you around, have a little look around with you. So we're starting off in the field where the horses are. So this is the first time it has not been, do you know, every time I start recording a blooming train goes past. So that's the North East Main Line. When we moved here we thought that might have been a compromise. Well, we thought it might have been a problem, not a compromise. It was a compromise. And actually doesn't bother us in the slightest, so that's an absolute bonus. It does get in the way when you're doing videos though. So we're starting in the field, and this is the first night that I've been able to get out when it hasn't been windy and I haven't been getting whipped around the face with my hair because it's been blowing an absolute gale. Honestly, the weather this year, I've never known it be so windy. Hi. Oh, Lydia. Do you know, rude. There's so many flies at the moment. That's one of the things when we moved here that we weren't prepared for. There's actually one just landed on my camera as well, and that's what she's trying to get a scratch off me for. That's why she's walked right into me. No manners. So one of the jobs that we've had to do in the field this month has been topping all of the dock leaves. So we don't use pesticides or anything like that in the field. And to be honest, it needs fertilising using some sort of organic fertiliser. We're actually right next to a little river. I'll walk over and show you that now. So anything that you put on, you've got to be careful if there's any runoff into the river. But obviously we don't want to be using anything that's harmful to the environment anyway. I'll show you what that looks like now. So I'm stood next to the fence that we got erected as soon as we moved in. So we knew there were horses were coming, obviously. We didn't want to continue paying livery for them because that's so expensive. And we wanted to use that money towards our mortgage here on the Smallholding. Because unfortunately we do have a mortgage. That's the only debt that we've got. And this fence here is one of the first fences that we got done. And because it was the middle of February, pitch black at kind of 3:30, and we were both working full time when we moved, well, we both still do work full time. We had to pay somebody to get this done because we simply couldn't get it done quickly enough for the time that we were bringing the horses home. So it's been done by somebody else, and ever since we've regretted it, to be quite honest with you, because Stephen could have done such a better job. It was put up and he's had to do so many different repairs to it. But anyway, it's this high because it's for the horses. You don't have to have horses' fences that high. She's coming over to see me again. Hi. So you don't have to have the horses' fences this high, but we just chose to because with it being right next to the river, I had visions of horses going swimming when they weren't supposed to. So the river is literally down the bank. You don't need a lawnmower when you've got horses. So this is the river here. So you can see all along there. So there's actually some fencing that we erected here, a couple of native trees, loads of nettles. And then the river goes all the way up where you can't see, but it follows it all the way up there. And we've actually had these, bought these plum trees. I think I showed these on a different video. And we've had to put fencing up because we do put the sheep on this river bank. It runs from one end of the field all the way to the other, and then we do put the sheep on just to help keep it down. So obviously the trees that we've put in need to be protected because they make short work of them otherwise, and we want to obviously try and grow as many trees as possible. So this is the field. It's just over an acre big, and the horses are living out full time at the moment, and Sonic over there is doing horse gymnastics. He's coming to see me now. So one of the questions that we often get asked by people who are interested in the smallholding side of things are, how much land have you got? And we actually are in about, well, the whole of the smallholding is on about 3.5, just under 4 acres. And some people think that that's quite a lot. Some people think that, wow, that's not very much. And to be honest, it's not very much. It's enough for us while we're working full time and while we don't have the equipment to maintain bigger fields. What are you doing, miss? Don't bump into me again, that'll be just rude. No. We'll rest on her back and have a chat. Oh, the flies are doing her head in. So we don't have any farm equipment here. We've got a ride-on lawnmower, which we actually bought from the previous owners, and we use that to top the field. So that's what Stephen was doing just the other night. I showed that in, I haven't showed it yet, it'll be coming up in a new video. And it's really good, it's really useful, to be honest, and you can buy all of the extra equipment for it. It's a little Countax, and you can buy all of the things that you might need to maintain just a small space like ours. We haven't done that yet, so because when we bought it, it did come with a chipper and something to gather all of the cuttings and things. So when Stephen topped the field of the dock leaves the other night, we don't want to leave those down for the horses to gorge on. So he actually just gathered all of those up and then we composted those as well. So in this field, we do run the sheep on here as well as the riverbank because we like to try and rotate them. We've got a little paddock and we've got what we call the big garden, which is essentially just another little paddock. And when I say little, by proper farmers sizes, it is just little. I'm going to go around here so I don't get headbutted again. The flies are really, really bad at this time of the year. Are you stamping them away, miss? So we'll go through from the field into the little paddock, which is right next to the vegetable plot. So if you've watched any of our other videos, you'll know fine well that I spend a heck of a lot of time in this bottom plot, as we call it. So this plot here originally, this holds my leg, that really hurt. Let me turn you around and show you what I'm talking about. So from the field where the horses are, we put this gate in. So this gate didn't exist. And this fence existed. And that farm gate up there, the 5 or 6 bar, 6 bar gate, that existed. But we put in the gate and this fence all the way up here, because what we wanted to do was section off this area, which was originally just overgrown. It wasn't even a meadow, it was just overgrown. There wasn't any beneficial flowers or anything like that in it. And we knew that we wanted to use this for a lot of the animals. So we decided, we had more horses at the time, and we decided to split this off and we just use this as a very temporary grazing paddock for the horses or for the sheep. Now when we moved, we did have 4 horses. And there isn't enough land here to sustain 4 horses where we don't have to give them extra feed or anything, but we knew that when we bought it, and we knew that it wouldn't always be that we had 4 horses either. So we always knew that one of the things that we would have to do is buy in extra hay, haylage, feed for all of our animals, and that's something that we just accepted. If we had more land, we would be able to do our own, but we don't. We would have had to invest in all of the equipment and things as well. So that's one of the things that we bought less land. We intensively utilise it, and we fully need, we need to be on top of the fertilising and looking after it and things like that. Now, one thing that we're looking at this year, which is a totally different video, but just out of interest, is using the horses' muck, which is we don't use any chemicals or anything like that, and making a kind of a spray or something for the field. So if you've got any ideas on that, let me know, because we really want to get this rested from autumn all the way through. There's nothing grazing on this over the winter, so it has a nice rest over there, but still we want to make sure that we put back in what we're taking out. Okay, so other side of that is what we call the big garden. I'm currently stood in the paddock at the moment, so I just showed you what that looks like. Up there we've got the ducks through there, but that is the Brahmas, the big birds that we've got, and I'm stood facing the vegetable plot. So at the minute it's just rained. It's the first day. It's been so dry and so windy, and it's the first time I've had any form of rain, and to be honest, it doesn't look like there's been any, but the ground is begging for it. So this is the vegetable plot. So this is the bottom plot, which you guys have seen me in during lots of other videos. Now originally, again, this was just part of the bigger paddock, and what we did, we put stock fencing all the way around. We measured out what we used originally for our pigs, but it turned out this was all just one big area, but it turned out that it was actually too big for them, and our pigs were really lean the first year that we raised pigs. That was from the breed that they were as well, so they weren't really an outdoor pig, and they were very lean. They were probably better off to be raised indoors. Again, I can tell you all about that one day if anybody's interested in that, because there was a lot of lessons learned then. So what we did after that, we sectioned it off and said, let's use this for outdoor growing space. Now, incidentally, this space here, including where the pigs are now, is the same size as you would get in an allotment, or back in the Dig for Victory campaigns. It's a 10 rod row space. So I think it's about 30 feet wide by, I think this one is 60 feet long if I remember rightly, something like that. So the pigs had both areas. They manured all of this soil for us on the first year that we had them, and then we sectioned it off and have grown in it for 2 years. Now, if you followed us for a while, you'll know that last year was a bit of a disaster because the lambs also got through. So we weren't prepared for that. So the little swines got through the fence. So on that fence, we've now got some mesh all the way along, just to stop any bunnies or any lambs or anything like that getting through and eating everything. We had a really good crop of all sorts of stuff, and the little blighters got in there when I was at work one day and came home to nothing, because there was nothing left. Now, this is something that's going to come out in a video just after this one, so a little bit of a teaser here. There's no animal was harmed in the making of this, but this is the sheep's wool, so we've just recently had them sheared, and I've just put it around the strawberries, and that's working out fantastically. Now, the good thing about having this right next to the sheep, they're not sheep, they're pigs. The good thing about having this right next to the pigs is that any scraps of food, any cabbage leaves, anything like that that we don't want, we can just throw over the fence to them, and that's giving them extra nutrients and extra bits of foraging things to go for, and keeping our feed bills down as well. Now, looking at this, you can see that it's rained. I mean, the trees have stopped it going over there. You can see it's still dry because we actually didn't get that much, but it has covered it just a tiny bit. And this originally was all grass, so when the pigs go on it, it's all grass, and these guys just turn it over in absolutely no time. Hi darling, are you doing okay? Oh, and a visitor. Hi Merlin. Hi darling. Be nice to each other, please. So there's some bits and pieces that the pigs haven't turned over, but really what we want these guys to do is to forage all of the nettles and, no, not my finger. Don't get your finger caught in a pig's mouth because you won't get it back. All of the nettles, turn up some of the roots and things. So that brick over there, that's quite a large brick. It might not look it on the camera, but they have taken that out of the ground. All of this was just one flat piece. So you can see that they're definitely doing the work that they're supposed to be doing. They've got a purpose in life. And it's, where are we now? It's the end of June, and these guys will be with us maybe for another month or two. They're actually growing a lot quicker than we anticipated, so it's all learning for us. These are a Welsh breed pig, and every year we have at least 2 pigs. 3 would be better, but whilst we're both working full time, we can't really accommodate the 3 because of the processing time. For us, it's difficult to fit everything in and around work, so you've got to do what's right. But 2 pigs for a family of 4 seems to be working out really well. Look at that happy tail. Draws your eye to something else as well, which I apologise for. So that's the pig area. And then at the moment in the paddock, this is where we've also got the sheep and the little lambs. This little lady is called River, and she is very independent. And then we've got all of the little lambs are in here. This is Nettle, our pet ewe. And the other ewes that we've got, which we've got 3 of, are all in here, or it might be in here and in the big garden as well. And we've got 3 of those, all of which had lambs this year. If you watch our vlogs, you'll know that unfortunately we lost one of the lambs, who was this guy's little mate. Say hi, Merlin. Hi, Merlin. Are you okay? This is Merlin. He was bottle fed along with the little fella that we lost. And this is another one that's not, this one here hasn't been hand reared, so it gets a bit worried when they come over. Not very trusting, not worried, that's not the right word, but you know what I mean, a bit apprehensive. So they're not always in here, so when the grass gets too long or when there's some things that need eating, we let them in and then we'll give the other areas a rest. But at the moment the gate's open because I've just come through and they can just have a little look around. Oh, Lydia's having a roll. Contrary to the noises, she's not in pain. You look like Bambi girl. Carol, what are you doing? How am I supposed to do this video when I'm stopping every 2 minutes? This is Carol. So this is the little lady that we brought home to be this little man's friend. So she was bottle fed as well, which is why she's so tame. Are you done, Lydia? That's one of the ways that they look after themselves with the flies, because the flies do really get on the horse's nerves as well as ours, bless them. So because we've only got such a small space, so this is one of the ewes. These are about 6 years old now. Oh, have you got poorly eye, darling? So one of the ways, as I say, because we've got haven't got that much paddock space and that much grazing space, we have to make sure that we stay on top of the muck. So hopefully when you're looking at this, you can't see very much muck, and that's because we go around and we actually hand pick it. Well, not with our hands, with with a scoop. It's one of the kids' jobs, so Jack has that job. We firmly believe that the kids should be involved. Excuse the train. The kids should be involved, and everybody has a job, and it's all age appropriate and that kind of thing. My daughter gets paid. She's of the age now where she gets pocket money, so she works for that pocket money. I say that, it's not works, it's works. She really does work for it. There's always a list longer than your arm of things to do for the small holding, and I call them jobs, but don't think of jobs as a bad thing. So people say I've got to go and do a job, or I've got to work. Well, it's not a bad thing from our point of view. Working on the small holding or doing a job is something that's going to benefit us. It's something that we enjoy doing 9 times out of 10. Don't always enjoy every job, and it's just fantastic to be able to be a part of this. So it's not a bad thing having to work here or having jobs or chores to do, however you want to call it. Now, just along the paddock as well, we've got what we refer to as the woods. Again, it sounds very grand, but it's really tiny in reality. Now, these trees here are black poplars, and they were planted by our previous owner. They are absolutely ginormous, but they give privacy because you can't see from here, but there's actually a farm track that runs down the back there. Now, although it's a private road, so there's only the farmer allowed down it, obviously, they can see into our land from there, which isn't a problem. We get on really well with them. But one day we will be extending the fence that we've put up that I'll show you all the way along there when finances allow, etc, etc. And you can see we've used Harry's fencing, which was actually here when we moved in, which is fantastic to be able to section off where the chickens are. Now, at the moment, they have cleared all of that area of grass. So what we want to do is allow that to come back, because it will come back if you give it time. And to allow that to happen, what we'll have to do is move the chickens onto a different area of the paddock. So what we've done before is where those nettles are along there, we could section that off, or we can make this one bigger, this was the original turkey pen, which is why it's so big for just for 4 chickens, which are in there at the minute. So there's different options, and that's one of the things that you need to do on a small holding, is be ready to adapt and to move things around. So nothing is ever final, we've found. So those pigs will be here this year, but next year we're thinking about putting some over in the field where we've got a nettle and dock problem. Then they can manure that, and we can reseed that with grass for the horses in the following 2 years. So for now, these are all our laying hens. So we get loads and loads and loads of fantastic eggs off these guys. They do get out onto this paddock as well, so they're not just stuck in there. But those fences during the day especially protect them from Mr. Fox, because we do have problems with the fox, and that's an unfortunate reality of the small holding as well. Now, these guys in here are our Brahmas, plus a little white escapee that seems to like it in there. These are our big fluffy feeted hens, and the big boy there that you can see is just about to do a dance. They've just had a load of lettuce from the gardens. They're quite happy in there. And again, this was all the ducks were in here, because what we had, this has a natural hill on it that goes down. We created a little pond at the end, so the ducks have been in here, and anywhere ducks go, they will completely trash the place basically. So we've just put these in here temporarily until we move them around, because obviously there's no grass in there for these guys either. So we need to make sure that they get some greens in the diet. So we do supplement them by giving them greens every day, but we want them out on the grass because that's obviously the best thing for them. Now at this point, I want to say, if you're still with me, that's fantastic, because I've never really done a small holding tour before, so I'm not sure what to include or what not to include. So I'm just telling you a bit about everything really. Please let me know in the comments what questions you might or might not have, because anyone that's thinking about doing this, I'd like to be able to give them our experience if they're interested, because that's one of the things that we found most useful, was looking at other people's experiences as well. It's not one size fits all by any means. We do things a lot differently here than a lot of people do, but I'm always happy to give what we've learned. I never ever want to tell people how you should do it, because that's for you to find out, but we can tell you how we do it and what we've learned and things that we may or may not do again. And I've got a few ideas for a different video on that, so the kind of the highs and lows of the journey that we've been on so far. But yeah, if you're still with me, thank you. So where am I? This here, where the nettles are, there's a small line that runs down, that's our septic tank. So we're not on what's it called? So we don't pay for that as part of our bill. We have to arrange for somebody to come out and empty the septic tank on a frequency that suits us, basically. So for our family at the moment, it's about once every 18 months, probably more like a year now, because obviously through COVID and everything, everybody was at home a lot more. But that depends on the obvious, you know, how often you're in and how often you're using the toilets and things. But all of our sinks drain into here, the toilets, the bath water, etc, etc. So one thing that we have to be careful of is what we're putting down the sink, because you can totally mess up the natural bacteria and everything that's in the septic tank, that takes care of it, basically, especially if you've got a soakaway or an overflow tank. I don't claim to know much more about them than that. So we're getting into the ugly area now. So that's just to look back on where we've come from. And then these nettles here, this land that we're on is just wasteland, as I say. We've had fires on here when it was all grass. The chickens have been on here. We actually have compost heaps here as well. So this was a complete fall away. This is a huge bank. So what we did do, which we are moving to a different location now, but just to allow this to rot down, was all of the horses bedding. So this was such a steep drop, whereas we filled it in with horses bedding so that we can use this for the gardens. It's like black gold, fantastic stuff. It's all rotted from years and years now, so it's really good. And this bit that I'm showing you here was where the ducks have been up until a few days ago, so we've just moved them, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But this again is just another pen that we've made out of the Harris fencing and other bits and pieces that we could pull together to keep Mr. Fox out and to keep the ducks in. So your fences are not just to keep your animals in, it's to make sure that you keep other things out as well. So in time we will put something else in here, but for now we'll probably leave it, let the ground recover just a little bit, because as I say, wherever ducks have been, goodness me, it's going to take a while to recover. And that is just a huge plant pot that we used as a mini pond for the ducks, and they absolutely loved that. And then again, ugly area, no secrets around here. All of this is sectioned off because the ducks are on the other side of that. And this area here, this is this used to be a big polytunnel that somebody was trying to get rid of, and they said, do you want it? But they didn't have the polytunnel cover, so we have changed it into just essentially a chicken house, just to keep the fox out again. And again, we rotate what's in here. These are chicks that will get attacked if they're in with the other ones, which is why we've just separated them out for now. They will go in eventually when they can probably go in now, to be quite honest, when they can stick up for themselves. Some of them aren't chicks. They just keep escaping, and this is where we can keep them in. That's a homemade feeder, so there's a drain pipe in the bottom of there. And this is just spare barn, corrugated, whatever it's called, the metal. And Stephen just made a little temporary, not temporary, a little shelter for the feeders so that they don't, what's she doing with the salad? Yeah, so that feeder's all just nicely on the shelter from the rain. On the other side of here, which I will walk around, but I can't get through this way, this is the new muck heaps that we were using from last winter. So you can see it's all started to fall down. They were nice and square, but the ducks have been on there and chickens that have escaped and things like that, and they've pulled it all down. So that's a job that needs sorting out before we need to use that again for the winter. So what we will do, we'll walk back down to where we started at the bottom towards the horses field, and I can go and show you what else we've got going on. On the other side of the river, you might be able to see if I stand still. That's the other side of the river. You can't really tell from this angle, but the farmer's got his cows on the other side, so the horses have got friends to talk to. Sometimes the cows have a bit of a mad moment and it sets the horses off, and it's quite funny because they both set each other off, and I don't think either of them know what they're running away from in the end. So this gate, as I say, we put this gate on just so that we can section the animals off. Dear me, lady. You're feeding yours as well. Hey, you're feeding your lamb as well. And all we have for water is a hose pipe that goes all the way and connects up to the house on the outside tap. Now you can see here, this is in the field just out of the way at the minute. This is our chicken tractor. There's a train coming, one sec. It wasn't. It sounds like all there ever is trains down here, but honestly there isn't. So this is the chicken tractor, and this was full just a couple of weeks ago. This had our meat birds in it, so they're Ross cobs. That's the breed that we've picked to be best for us to raise here on the small holding. And we did do a video actually about how self-sufficient are we in meat, so you can have a look at that if you want to see the Ross cobs in the meat tractor, and if you want to see a little bit more about that. But that's just there out of the way for now, because we've got nothing to go in it just at the moment. That is primarily used for our meat birds. What you doing? What you doing, lady? So yeah, that's used for our meat birds, and that's why it's got nothing in it at the moment. Come on, I'm gonna have to move. Yeah, really. There's your lamb shouting. Go and see her. Go and see her. She's shouting you. Oh, and he's the two hand-reared ones. Hello, Merlin, again. This video is going to be forever long now. How rough are they? Goodness me. She's had enough. So in this garden we've had a chicken coop, which was where we've had the Brahmas were in here before, and then they just free roam on this garden. As I say, we swap things around all the time. And over here where you can see the lambs going in is what we call the creep feeder. So it's the lambs feeder. So if we feed the lambs creep food, so now that Carol and Merlin, for example, aren't on the bottle, they can only get their feed from the grass, and that might not be enough for them, because obviously the other lambs are still on the mums, as you've just seen. What have you got? Just a lamb frenzy. And what we do is we've put a feeder in here, and we basically just add extra feed into there, which you can see. They're not very graceful because they do stand in it, but what it means is that there's an entrance here that we've cut out that you can see them using, and the lambs can get in, but the mums can't, because the mums will take any bit of food that you offer them, and essentially you'll lose it before the lambs can get to it. That is just made out of pallets, as you can probably tell. We're walking around in a big circle here, so leaving the big garden behind us, we've got all our house and our other space there, and here alongside the barn, which is in between where we have been and where we are now, is where we keep the goats. So during the summer, or the warmer months anyway, the goats are outside. We've got our two little dwarf pygmy goats here, and these guys are outside all through the warmer months. And in the winter, they go inside the barn because you don't like it cold. So this is Olive, and this is Apple. And then through there, you can see that's where we've just been. That's the paddock, and the pigs are in the distance. And then this is the goat shed. So it is literally a shed. And then we've just put them some trees down, a nice little slide. This is their drinking water that gets changed every day or every couple of days. And they just love it in here. They have a nice little play, and it's chill out time now because it's late evening. Olive. And this here is the back of the barn, or the front of the barn, but the back of where we've been. So one of the things that we were very grateful for, and that really got us to move here, was having a big old barn. So with having the horses especially, but also with what future plans we've got, because we would like cattle in the future. Just for self-sufficiency purposes, not for making a business from or anything like that. And at some point we would need barn for all the different animals. We knew that we would have to overwinter anything in the barn inside, because the ground could just not sustain it. We don't have enough grass, as I said, but it's not just that, they will trash over the winter, and we don't have enough to be able to rotate, so that they don't trash the land. So the barn was a huge selling point for us. It's quite a big one. I can't remember the size of it now, but I'll take you in and briefly show you what we've got. Now, as you can tell, I've not tidied up in here. This was a bit impromptu. So these stable doors are open because we've just taken some ducks out of here that we separated our males and females. And in there we've got a mama hen and her chick. The chick's in the corner. I don't think you can see. She only hatched one out. So she was on a clutch of maybe 8 or 9. And then when the first one hatched, she just left the rest, and we did think she'd go back, but she didn't. And unfortunately, that's the brutal reality. So she's just got one chick that's happily in the corner. I'll see if I can get a shot of him or her. You can just see the little head popping out from the safety of Mum's wing. She's keeping an eye on me. She's puffing up. Leave me alone. But the stables we put in ourselves when we moved in, I think it cost us about 10 grand for 4 stables, 12 grand, something like that if I remember rightly. Stephen actually got rid of his posh to us car at the time. And that actually takes me on to something else. We don't have the farm equipment, as I said here, except for the ride-on lawnmower, which we don't use for mowing our lawns. It's for topping the fields and pulling stuff around and helping us out in different ways. But we also don't have big Land Rovers or pickups or anything like that. So in our old house, we had more expensive cars than what we've got now. Now we've literally got old runarounds that we put poorly sheep in when we have to take them to the vets. That's how we bring our pigs home, piglets, weaners, when we get those. You know, it's one of those things that we find is much more practical for us to have cheaper to run cars, and that's one of the ways that we manage to have no debt as well, because we don't want to be paying cars off every month when that's not the priority, certainly not right now, and I doubt it ever will be again. So this stable here, this all needs taking out now, because this is where the sheep were recently. This is where they all gave birth. We've just not got round to cleaning this out. So that's just another thing. It's prioritising the jobs on the small holding. And it would be okay if we were just going to pop all this on a muck heap, but a lot of this will go into compost piles and different places around the small holding. Unfortunately, it can't just go straight on the veg plot, because it'll probably burn. It's one of the sheep's beds is one of the things that needs to rot down, but it could go on pathways and things like that in the veg plot. So that's why it hasn't been done yet, because we really need to be selective about where we're going to put it. We don't actually have a lot of space for muck heaps, and that's another thing. So when we moved here, we knew that we didn't want huge unsightly muck heaps either. We wanted to make sure that we did it as neat and tidy as we could. So where I showed you where it's been put down the bank, that helped us kind of even out the huge gap that was there as well, because it's a little bit dangerous, if I'm honest. And that's done a fantastic job. Then we'll be taking some of it out, putting it on the veg plot and filling it back in again. So it's just a constant cycle effectively. But Stephen has also made the big bay that you also saw, which we used for last year's muck, and that will also have some of this year's muck on it as well. Then once we put from the bank muck heap onto the veg plot, we'll then start back on there. Does that make sense? So we don't have loads and loads of space for muck heaps, so we can't just get a tractor full and dump it somewhere, because we've got to be very careful and manage our land very well and use all of the space as best as we can. So that's why we need to be careful about where we put this. Now, incidentally, the horses' stables are not on straw. We only use straw for the other animals' bedding, because they don't use very much of it. So this is just one lot. They would never have all of this taken out and fresh put back in like the horses. And the horses in the winter, when they're in full time, they get mucked out every day, and believe me, they can generate a lot of waste, and straw takes up so much more space waste-wise than the bedding that the horses are on, which is the chopped rapeseed straw. So it looks more like shavings. And it's just a very fine, I haven't got any to show you, but it's just a very fine bedding and takes up no space whatsoever on the compost muck heaps, instead of straw, where you'd have a huge pile of straw. And it rots down so quickly. So if you don't have much space and you do have muck to get rid of, that's a really good option as well. And also one thing is, I'd always want to have a pony on the small holding, because we use so much of the muck, and the price of compost now, you know, people pay for horse muck. So, you know, it's just crazy how prices are going up for the compost that you buy from the shop and things. So if you do have cows or horses or anything like that, and you're looking to grow your own, you've got free fertiliser there. This is the little ride-on that I told you about, and that's got the collector on the back. So that's just in here after Stephen's topped the fields. We've got a little handmade sheep feeder there. The hay gets put in the top, where we've actually got all of those branches at the moment, and they just take the hay out the side there. Now this is a bale of straw here, which these are the size that we get. So these are 20 or 25 pound we pay for a big one, and this is obviously one that's been opened and that we're in the middle of using, but that'll last us a heck of a long time, because nothing's actually using it at the moment. But when you do get an escapee chicken, they come in and they scratch it everywhere and make such a mess. And then lastly in here, this little cage here is a rat-proof cage. So we've had ducklings in here, we've had chicks in here, we've had poolie birds in here, and Stephen's just made this literally out of pieces of wood that we've had lying around, and just some of the, it's not chicken wire, but you can see what it's like, and that doesn't let the rats through. That's totally rat-proof. And then also on the back, stable here, what we've done, he's just extended with pallets to make this a bigger enclosure for the goats in the winter. And obviously we've got the high-rise pallets there as well, there's actually a step behind that doorway. And they just hop up there and have fun running around there. There's a little shelter for them there as well if they want to go to bed on a night. And we just fill all of this with straw, and that's a nice cosy place for them. But obviously we only want them in as a short amount of time as possible in the winter, because nothing wants to be stuck inside with nothing else to be able to do. We do try and give them toys and other things that'll keep them occupied, but we keep them in as little as possible during the winter. But that's the goat's home for now. This has just come in, so she's just going to show you the chick. Just the one.
Daryl.
And actually the other thing I didn't know, and Grace has just told me, is here, behind here, we've got another broody hen. So it's another Brahma who's sat on, do you know how many eggs?
About 20.
Oh my goodness, we'll have to take some of them away. Quite a few eggs. So pop around next month on the next Smallholding tour and there might be a whole bunch of chicks. That happened before. We were literally in the Veg Plot one day, and our Araucana bird, which is the silver ones that were in the back of the barn in that mesh greenhouse type thing, she rocked up with about 13 hens. She looked so surprised, almost as surprised as we did, because we didn't even know she was sitting on the eggs. So there you go. And then finally we get to the growing space. So this is a really important part, my most important part of the Smallholding. It's what we can produce to eat, as well as obviously raising our own meat. We raise all of our own vegetables. That's not true, sorry. We raise a lot of our own vegetables. I would like to raise all of our own vegetables, but we're not quite there yet. So stick around and you can see if we ever manage to get that to happen. So this is the greenhouse, but first of all, we're going to go through that gate there because I want to show you the ducks that I was talking to you about. So in here, we've got our adult ducks and this year's hatch as well. These are all just the girls and there's 2 boys. So the boys from this year's hatch we actually have processed and they're in our freezer now. So as I say, we raise as much of our own meat as we can. In fact, we're pretty much self-sufficient in meat. So go and have a look at that video and you can see what I mean by that. Now here we've got just another handmade, we did have to buy this feather board, but a handmade shelter for the ducks. And this is the house door on this one. That's how we lock it on a night, with a big old tree stump, and the ducks go in there. And that's pretty fox proof, and that trellis goes through to our veg plot. Now excuse the noise, it's going to get loud. So in here they've just got a little water pond. I'm not sure what other liquid would be in there, but it's a water pond, and that gets changed every day, sometimes twice a day. And this is all the growing space that we call the ugly area, so we've never grown here before. These are all just squash, courgettes, all kinds of different things, and it's the ugly area because basically any tub that's been broken but is still something that can hold soil or compost, like this is a prime example, got kicked by one of the horses, but it can still hold compost and it can still grow something in it. So we've just brought all of these here, put a bit of ground membrane down because this is just prolific. You can see the weeds that are growing up at the fence there. Prolific with weeds if we don't do that, and we're just trying to get it into a bit more of a manageable area. Stephen has recently taken the lawnmower to it so the ducks aren't getting trampled in all of the nettles, and they look so much happier. Now the majority of the trees in here are apple trees. I've got a damson tree over in the corner, and the apples this year are looking really good. I'm going to have to actually come through and take some of these out because there's just too many. So you see that's just fell off. They fall off in June. It's called the June drop, and if they don't, it's the tree naturally shedding so that it can just do well on the ones that it's got. And if they don't fall out, you're better off coming along and just clearing some space so that you can have nice big apples. I mean, look at these. It's going to be a good apple year. So this fence here, this is something that Stephen has just put up. Got that done. Again, it's all about when finances allow and priorities, etc. And this goes all the way down to the edge of what we call the orchard. This is my damson, and there's a cherry tree on the other side as well. Another apple tree. And these ones here that are not food producing, we've just topped those just to give all of the others a little bit more space. So you can see where the ducks have been. Typical of the ducks, that's where they like to put the beaks and see what bugs they can get. And wherever we've put the little pond, it essentially kills off what's underneath it. So we're using that to help us overcome the nettle problem as well. And these trees here are just nice and small, actually coppicing. They're coming back after they've been topped. So that's just a nice space, giving us extra growing space, and we'll see what we end up doing with this in future years. So from this one, we're going to the pretty space. I absolutely love this space. This is just a little gate, doesn't need to stop any big animals or anything like that, that Stephen put on to separate the orchard from the veg plot, because obviously when we've had chickens and things in here, they just come through and decimate any of your crops. We've got a lovely little walkway from that gate all the way up to the shed, which you might have seen in the clip when I was walking through. And in this behind me here, that is the original veg plot. So that was here when we moved in as well as hin. And this bit behind me here, where the cold frames are, and that's the car park where we were stood in front of the barn, we put all of this in. So Stephen did a grand job of getting all of these beds in. I'll flip you around and show you around. So this is one of the most proudest bits that I've got. So this shed Stephen made completely from scratch for me one day for Christmas, completely bespoke, fits the gap perfectly. Behind that is just a dead end. It goes straight through to the hedge, and put me some decking on. And then we've got all of our little herbs and things on here as well. Those big leaves are horseradish. I won't go through all of the garden things in detail. I'll do a separate video on that. So from this angle, that's the gate that we've just been through, and that's the little walkway. Now these cold frames here, again, these were built from scratch using sleepers that we came across, and Stephen has made both of those, and he's also made 3 huge beds on this side. We bought these because we wanted them to look pretty, so we didn't just use scraps of wood for this. It's something that he was very proud of doing, rightly so. And then on this side as well, so this is the walkway in between, which takes you up through the gate there. And this bed on this side, again, it's just a different shape so that it makes the best use of the space. And then a little pathway, and next to the polytunnel. So this polytunnel we bought the first year we moved in, I think it was, and it's done us really well. It's full of beetroot at the moment and tomatoes on this side. These need good water actually, because it's been so dry outside. I've been watering outside and forgetting to do inside sometimes, so these need a really good water. But this polytunnel was just a cheap one. It's 6 meters by 3 meters from eBay, and Stephen's had to make some changes to it as it's broken over the years, because you know they're not designed to last forever or to be used as much as I probably use them, so the zips come apart and things like that. He's just made an extra frame there, but we can still close this and do whatever we need to do to keep the heat in, but at this time of the year it's just open permanently. I've just taken the chives down because they were they needed topping. And this is feverfew that's coming out now. I'll be harvesting some of that. So we've got all sorts of different things in these beds. As I say, I'll do another video dedicated to just what's going on. But here's a classic example of how hot it's been. These mustards are just flowering immediately. Cabbages and different mustards, they're not really standing a chance because of the dry weather. We've also put in some brambles, so blackberries. Because we love brambles, and the foraging around here wasn't as good as we had in our old place, so we thought, I know, we can grow them at home. So they're looking well. And then going through this pathway takes us into the original veg plot. So this is the tea bed, the bee bed. There's so much in here that the bees love. This borage is mostly self-seeded, and I'm fine with that because the bees love it so much. It encourages all of the pollinators. Chamomile's having a sad time because of the weather. We've got loads of apple mint and all different herbs, lavender and everything in here. Now again, I won't go into detail on everything, but we've got perennials, we've got raspberries, we've got lots of different brassicas, strawberries. The asparagus is starting to fern there. We've got beans at the back. At the back here there is another chicken pen that we put in just to clear down some space, and because I needed a separate spot for some chickens we had at the time. And then here is what we call the fire pit bed. So this bed was just trashed when we moved in. It had everything burnt in it. It was full of screws and absolutely all sorts. So we just they'd obviously just used it as for fires. So we just refer to it as the fire pit bed. We've got Jerusalem artichokes there. This is my potato experiment. So these are all from potatoes that I saved myself. And then a new compost bit at the back there, which is where the cardboard is there, just to try and keep the weeds down. Then we've got a lot of fruit bushes in here. Gooseberries that are looking fantastic. Raspberries that need, wow, they have changed colour since yesterday. Had to stop for that. Look at that, isn't that just perfect? Even though it's not sunny, that tastes delicious. I usually find when it's sunny, the strawberries and the raspberries taste even nicer. Oh my, I'm gonna have to have those on breakfast tomorrow. In fact, I might not make it to breakfast. In fact, nobody needs to know that they're even there. Right, so the other thing that we've got here is the raspberries. And then we've actually got some black currants, which in fact, let me show you these two. Can you see that? They're looking fantastic. And then in the distance, red currants, and behind those, a little bit dwarfed, are the white currants. So this is just starting to look like a jungle. Need to get out here and harvest a whole load of this rhubarb again, because we harvested it quite hard recently. So I've left it for a little bit, but the rain that we've had has pushed all the leaves down, so it's a bit of a rhubarb jungle. And there is a pathway under there that goes along to the hedge and all the way along. So we'll get out and we'll get that harvested, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that as well. So this is what we refer to as the veg plot. And then behind me is what we call the mini orchard. So this is all different blueberries here, 1, 2, 3. And we've got apricot trees. Look at those. Can you see those? They're apricots. And actually we need to stabilise this tree. We need to get a stake in there. And there's more apples through here. These are my honeyberry bushes. I'm turning this into a garden video, aren't I? Sorry. But look, those apples are looking great as well. Absolutely fantastic. And then finally at the back we've got more apple, pear, all different kinds of trees, berries, and as you can see, cherries too. These will go really dark red if we get chance, if the birds don't get them. We had a great harvest of this the other year. We're going to do cherry brandy for Christmas with these. And then more jungle. So we've got there's a chokeberry and a josterberry. One's here and one's further on the other side of there. I can't remember which way around they are, but everything's looking amazing. And then this is just another little gate, more homegrown nettles to take us back out onto the beds that we were just looking at. So that's my first attempt at a tour of the Smallholding. I've probably only told you half of what I wanted to tell you. I've probably only shown you half of what you wanted to see. But if you've got any questions or comments, then please let me know. On the next video, I'll try to include any answers if you do have any questions. But for now, I'm going to call it a day because I've had no rain, no wind, so I'm pushing my luck if I keep trying to go. So thank you for watching. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed this, and I'll speak to you next time. And if you're not subscribed, don't forget to subscribe. Come along for this mad journey. See you later.